We are here talking about metabolism today. And this was actually a question from a client in a question box. And she was like, what are, signs that you are metabolically healthy? And I was like, that'd be a good podcast. Like,
Mhm.
we like lists here. We like concise things, easy to understand. So yeah, we're gonna talk about big five signs that you are metabolically healthy. And I think we're going to get into a little bit of the science behind it, like what it's saying, what it's telling you when you have these symptoms or don't have these symptoms. So yeah, I think it'll be good. I
Yeah.
feel like one of my clients, I wore this shirt last week, and one of my clients said I looked like Poison Ivy. For like the character from the Batman movie. And I was like, okay, I actually don't hate that. I'll take it.
I remember
Therma, I think it was.
there was a shirt that I had a few years ago. I was going to the CrossFit gym and the owner, Mike, was like, and Art, I think in the same week, my husband, it was like the like cuffs on the sleeves. It's kind of like that, but it's like up here.
Yeah.
And just like how it didn't look good. And I was like, okay, I guess I won't wear that shirt ever again because I just made a reel with it. And I thought it was cute.
So there's this guy at my gym, an older guy, super nice. We've talked because he was wearing Lions Not Cheap clothes. His name's Ammo. He is like 50. He's older. But he's pretty jacked, and he was asking me about peptides and stuff. And so I saw him the other day because I don't always see him, but I saw him the other day, and I was wearing like spandex shorts and a tank top working out. And he started following me on social media, and he's like, man, the stuff you post is weird and interesting, and just, it's very interesting to watch. And I was like, okay. He's like, also, your quads are huge. And I was like, thank you. And he meant it in a nice way. He was like, I mean, you look great. And I was like, thanks. I guess Dane, my coach Dane, and I have talked about it. I'm like, Dane, you have to stop training quads with me. Like, I could never work out my quads again and they'd still be huge. Like, it is the curse of being a soccer player and a CrossFitter in my lifetime. My quads are ginormous, but like, he was literally just like, your quads are huge. I was like,
did he say this to you in person?
Yep. No, straight to my face. It's fine.
At least he's not like being the creep on social media. Becca and I have had some weird,
really,
dude. I just like go and block these people. Like most of the people who listen to this podcast are women, yes. I'm guessing.
Yep.
But men out there, there's been a few that have like messaged very strange things. Like they're like,
especially because Liz talks about poop, so things get like really gross and
real gross.
Real
and
fast.
Like the guy like messaged me about how like his poop was sticky and all this stuff, or like I don't even know what he said because it was so disgusting. I was like, you're blocked. And then just like messaging like, I need to poop, and it's like, bro, like I don't know. You're off. You're done. You're blocked for good. So anyways, that's the beauty of social media. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want to hear from you. You leave a nasty comment, blocked.
Yep. Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah. You got to have some tough skin though, working in social media and being on video all the time. Like personally too, I don't
look at my comments really anymore.
I don't look at my comments too much, but I definitely also constantly seeing yourself on camera. Mm-hmm. Like I have to have a short-term memory, and if what was filmed or how I said something, like being able to coherently speak on complex topics easily and quickly, especially on stories. Like the number of times that I'll refilm stories because I'm like, fuck, I messed that up. Like, or it's a lot to, and we are by no means would I consider myself an influencer. Like, and this is something Layla Hormozi actually talked about. And I was like, I actually love this because she mentioned that she's like, I'm a CEO that makes content. I am by no means like an Instagram influencer. That is not my job. It is not. I create content to be educational and to obviously drive, traffic to our company and help women via our practice. But I am not, bringing my tripod everywhere I go, and my whole revenue none of my it's a lead magnet for clients is our social media, but like I don't get paid to post. I don't get, there rarely are times where a company will reach out and be like, yeah, we'll pay you for a reel. I'm not making thousands for reels. It's just, it is a different.
Well, and I think the stress of it too is like we were talking on our walk today. All right, if you're dealing with water retention, you're waking up puffy, your ankles or your wrists are really swollen, or you can't get your rings off, and maybe you're even dragging throughout the day, no matter how much water you drink, there's actually a good chance that you're not actually hydrating properly.
Exactly, because water alone is not enough. You need electrolytes, you need sodium, potassium, magnesium, because those things actually pull water into your cells. Otherwise, you're basically just flushing it out and wondering why you're still tired, you're still bloated, and you're still sluggish.
But here's the thing, most electrolyte supplements out there aren't helping you in any way because a lot of them contain things like natural flavors, food dyes, and maltodextrin, which can irritate your gut. And these things can also spike your blood sugar when you're trying to heal.
That's why we both started using Buoy. It's super simple, just trace minerals and electrolytes in liquid form. No flavors, no colors, no sugar, no sweeteners, and you squeeze it into whatever you are drinking. Water, coffee, tea, smoothies, you name it.
And it's clinically backed by science too. So studies have shown that Buoy helps you hydrate better, 64% better in fact, and that's data coming from key blood and urinary markers, not just marketing fluff. And honestly, you can feel the difference. I've had many clients tell me their digestion's improved, they have less headaches, and they're better energy throughout the day.
And Buoy isn't just for people that go to the gym all the time and sweat a bunch. They actually offer a 35% lifetime discount for anyone that's struggling with chronic illnesses. Things like POTS, Hashimoto's, Crohn's disease, chronic migraines, and every autoimmune condition. They're really committed to making better hydration accessible to people who need it most.
I actually throw it in my coffee every morning because it's such an easy upgrade. You don't even taste it, but you're definitely gonna notice if you miss it.
If you're tired of playing hydration roulette and want something that actually supports your body, you've got to try Buoy. It's honestly one of the simplest ways to feel better faster.
You know, there's so much that goes on in the world of social media, like the algorithm changes or you need to try to keep up with this or that. So we have people obviously that help us and coach us on these things. But if it's unnatural, so I don't know when this will air and when the post I was showing Becca, I basically last Friday was like, you know what, I'm just going to do this like annoying personality and then like talk back and forth. It was, it's kind of fun filming it, but it was also weird. And I've watched other people in terms of it's the engagement, right? It's keeping people watching, it's keeping people listening and being interesting. And so also thinking through what the message is and how to say it in a way that's engaging and compelling. At the same time, like you guys listen to our podcast, this is just like in our natural element. We'll just talk on functional medicine. Sometimes it's, killer. And then most of the time it's like, hey, I should actually make reels on what I rant about behind the scenes. But, it's a lot of work. And I did appreciate what she was talking about in terms of not being a content creator, not focusing on, trying to get reels for likes and shares and comments and clicks and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. It's just that you show up and you're providing value and you build trust that way. And some people don't want to be on social media. Our team, like a lot of them aren't really active on social media. A couple of them are, and I love that. But they also, they want to be client facing and do that and live their lives and not show all the behind the scenes things. And I don't blame them for that because I feel sometimes like guilty if I'm not showing something or, like, oh, I can't transparently like show something here. I mean, I just started to not give them. Okay. I started not to care as much, but I'll not swear because I'll get some comments. But, if I go on and I don't have any makeup on, like whatever, that's me in my raw outfit. I look cute with my makeup on. That's why I like my makeup. I like to smell good. I like to look good. I like to be tan. I like to be thin. Bulking phases are not my favorite. I'm getting ready to go back. I'm going to go back into cut before our September event because
I've been begging Dane every week. He's like 2 more weeks. And I'm like, I don't like eating this much.
But, and this is one thing too, to kind of talk on with metabolism is like the way that you become metabolically healthy is not underfeeding yourself all the time. That you're going through phases where you are living in maintenance or you're reverse dieting out of a cut season, or maybe you're on the other side trying to build some muscle and you're eating a little bit more and it can be uncomfortable, but you're metabolically healthy because you have the flexibility to do this and stay within a good range. You're not gaining massive amounts of weight, right? Yep. So let's dive in. Number 1, you have a good, stable energy throughout the day. And why would this be? This would be because your mitochondrial functioning, but most importantly, your blood sugar is not swinging around all over the place, right? So when we think about good blood sugar levels, we'll talk about this when we get to the lab section. We're thinking somewhere in the ballpark of 70 to 90, even some people can go a little bit into the low 90s, right? But that you're averaging somewhere mid 80s for your blood sugar throughout the day if you had a continuous glucose monitor. It's normal to see a rise in blood sugar post prandial, like when you're eating food. almost said postpartum. But when you're eating food, it's normal to see a little bit of a rise and then coming back down. You don't want to have too high of a spike and you don't want to stay high for long. It goes up. What goes up must come down, right? And you don't want to crash. That's where you feel like crap. You're moody, you're shaky, you're hangry, you're dizzy, you're, nauseous sometimes, can't think clearly. So when you're crashing and your blood sugar is really dropping, you start to crave things, right? And generally you're craving carbohydrates and sugar, quick energy source to get you back up. So this is something where we see that people also get energized from their food. They're not feeling exhausted after they eat. And then this is, obviously, how is the person's metabolism relative to what they're eating? If you're eating McDonald's, you're probably going to feel like crap because you just put a bunch of crap in your body. But if you're eating a good balanced, meal like chicken breast, sweet potato, maybe you've got I don't know, some cottage cheese, some avocado, some veggies, whatever you like with that. It's a well-balanced meal. You've got protein, fats, and carbs, and it keeps you sustained. You're not having to eat 2 hours after because you're crashing and you're craving things, right? I think also recognizing that when you eat a meal, you want to have the insulin response, right? To signal and get the energy into your cells. And this is where your mitochondria come to play. So your mitochondria, if they're functioning efficiently, meaning they're not overburdened, with toxins and they're not really, really inflamed, they're able to take the food that you consume and convert it into energy. And that's usable energy in the body. So it's being put to use to help you with your brain function, your heart pumping blood, right? Building muscle if that's the goal, reducing inflammation, right? Acting as anti-inflammatory activators in the body, counteracting oxidative stress, reactive oxidative species, right? If you're eating a good quality diet. So stable energy would mean that you have good blood sugar, good insulin sensitivity. Your cells can actually listen, accept the nutrients and use them well, and that your adrenals are also not just constantly in this crisis mode, right? So we're responding. And I think here there's going to be some caveat to you get jolts of energy throughout the day when there is something really going on that is, let's say excitatory or it's a stress response, right? Like you got an email, you got a text, you got a phone call, you got an issue at hand, fires that you need to put out. But then you should also be able to come back into more of a calm state and not stay stuck in that high revved adrenaline state. So those would be some things related to number one, in terms of your energy is stable throughout the day and you're not crashing at 3 p.m.
Yep. And number two is you can go 4 to 5 hours between meals without getting the hangry feeling or what I would call low blood sugar symptoms. So you're not obsessing over snacks. You don't feel like you need to, go and pack something with you if you're going to be out of the house for an hour or two. You don't need food for energy. You use it to kind of fuel your day, right? So if you had to, you would be able to skip a meal and still be able to function. You aren't getting lightheaded. These are kind of some symptoms to watch out for if you, are going 2 to 3 hours without a meal and you start to experience these. Lightheaded, headaches, heart palpitations, which is, yes, a sign of poor blood sugar regulation. Anxiousness, jitteriness, nauseousness are all signs of poor blood sugar regulation. And I used to be like, oh, I just have really low blood sugars. No, it was because my body couldn't stabilize my blood sugar. So I would go through huge spikes and then crashes. And the crashes is when you would start to experience these symptoms. And people are like, oh, I just need to eat. No, your body needs to be able to flip to a fat burning state when you don't have food in the system, and it should be able to stabilize things there. So you should be satisfied after meals. You shouldn't feel stuffed or ravenous an hour later. You can tell the difference between hunger and stress eating, right? And so this is basically the, metabolic flexibility at its core. You are able to switch between burning glucose or whatever was in the meal that you ate. And then when there's no resources there, like in a fast overnight or in a 4 to 5 hours in between a meal, or you got super busy and you had to skip lunch maybe, and you didn't eat until dinner. You aren't in this totally catastrophic phase, right? You are being able to be fat adapted is what we call it. And it's ultimately flexible, and the body can easily switch between that fat and carb source as an energy source. And so the one thing that I will say here is if you are very used to eating very regularly every 2 to 3 hours, or if you maybe have been eating higher carb, lower fat, and you try to go longer without eating, there will be an adaptation period. And I experience this. I consider myself pretty metabolically flexible, but if I'm in a phase of eating a lot of food and then I go into a phase where maybe I'm fasting or I'm doing a little bit less food, I'm going to be hungry, because my body got very used to eating that form and that schedule throughout the day, right? And so there will be usually an adaptation period, but what we see a lot of times is that there's like a really sticky period for people that are metabolically unhealthy. Like we take maybe carbs away and they are brain dead, they are not able to function throughout their day, they're exhausted, they're not sleeping, not like that is very metabolically stuck. Your body basically cannot function without the glucose. And then we need to go through a period of resensitizing someone, right? And it has to be done right. Like you can't just pull carbs. You need to give it a different energy source. You need to give it fats. You need to give it the adequate calories. And there's a right and a wrong way to do this. But if you really struggle with not eating every 2 to 3 hours, usually it's a sign that your body is not metabolically flexible. Because even now I'm eating 300 plus grams of carbs in a day. And then some days, like right now I'm taking Saturday and Sunday and kind of eating a little bit less and eating more fats. I can still fast until 12, 1 o'clock and be fine. And go from eating 300 grams of carbs on a Friday to fasting on a Saturday. And I feel fine.
Yeah,
So.
you're probably really full from Friday. If I had to guess. But I also think that some of that can be mental too, right? So when you think about individuals, I mean, I've heard that people are eating like 17 times a day, maybe even, higher. Some people estimate, I don't know. But I used to be a snacker and a grazer. And I think when you get into that state, it's also that you are unaware that you're doing it. You probably could go 2 to 3 hours, but if you can't, then you also need to ask yourself, why? Is this a boredom thing or is it more of a physical thing? Because those are two different things when we're thinking about, emotional eating. I'm bored. Like I told Becca, last week, actually before my period came, I was like, I just want the snacks that I don't have in my house. And I've looked in the cupboard like 6 times today and nothing new is coming. It's so funny how just like sometimes that happens too, where you're just like, oh, I want something, but I don't know whatever. But a lot of it could be mental, emotional too. But yeah, if you can't 2 to 3 hours at a minimum, I mean, really per Celsius, when we think about that, you want at least 3 to 4 hours, I would say, between meals, ideally. Number 3 is your weight is relatively stable without obsessively tracking. I don't enjoy tracking my food. Back in the day I did, and I was crazy and I weighed and measured everything. And I probably got burnt out on it just because I also wasn't seeing a lot of great results and it became very frustrating and felt like a chore. And why was I doing the things and it's not working? Well, I was very inflamed. So if you are somebody right now who is taking big swings, right? You're taking 5, 7, 10-pound swings. This is going to be a sign that you're inflamed and that there's probably some hormonal dysregulation. So when we think about a day-to-day fluctuation, normal 1 to 3 pounds, especially if you, for example, are coming up on ovulation or coming up to your menstrual cycle. Maybe you haven't pooped. Maybe you ate later last night. Maybe you have an infant or a child who is sick and they're waking you up in the middle of the night. Whatever the case might be, this is all going to influence your water fluctuation. And that can be normal, right? Food volume sitting in your stomach. If you're eating large volumes of food or you had a big meal, like we went to the steakhouse, the Brazilian steakhouse on Sunday night for dinner. Thankfully, we went at 5 because I was like, I don't want to go later. I want, this meat to digest and then go to bed. So it was like 3 hours difference by the time we finished eating and before we went to bed. But that was a lot more volume of food because I also kind of fasted on Sunday, excited to go to the Brazilian steakhouse, But then on Monday morning, yeah, I'm going to see until I go to the bathroom and have a nice bowel movement, right? I'm probably going to see a little bit more retention there. And also eating out generally results from a sodium perspective a little bit more. But 1 to 3 pounds, that's kind of the range that you want to be in. If you are outside of that, like I mentioned, this can really be a sign that your body is not metabolically healthy. And I would say too, that it takes you a long time to come down from that. So you see this weight creeping up over time because you're taking these big swings. I would say that some of this, has to be recognized within a reasonable range. Okay. So for example, if you're eating 1,000 calories Monday through Thursday, and then you just go ham with like 4,000 or 5,000 calories over the weekend, you're probably not just seeing water retention and hormonal fluctuation. You're probably putting on some weight there, right? So if you aren't, managing the variations here within a maybe 500 to 700 calorie range, over time, you're probably going to prime your body to store fat and you're actually gaining fat and gaining weight. What we're saying is that from a day-to-day perspective, you're seeing really overtly high fluctuations, 5 to 7 pounds. Insulin and leptin are not signaling, you're not feeling full, or maybe you're not even getting the hunger signals. That's another big one too. People train their body not to feel hungry. They they pride themselves. I used to pride myself in, pushing off that hunger for hours because I thought then I'm in the fat burning mode. God, I didn't know anything when I was in college doing Weight Watchers. That's why it worked and then it didn't, right? But then also we would say here that this shows that you just have flexibility and your body trusts you, right? So you have, and for me, this is one thing that I am pretty passionate about. I'm not going to give up the things that I want to do on the weekends with my family and friends. And I'm not going to stress about putting like a 2-drink limit, or I can't have a dessert if I, go to this party or whatever. I just kind of eat to intuition. A lot of times for me, I will say it is less than way back in the day, right? I'm not really triggered by much. Like we had a birthday party this weekend. I had a couple cocktails, I had some steak and like the elotes, but I wasn't triggered to get like a whole plate of food. I didn't go for the desserts. I brought a cookie home for my son, but it's just not something that triggers me anymore. Like it's there, I can have it if I want, but I just wasn't really in the mood. I was mingling and talking with people. And so, I think evaluating too, what are your triggers and how does your body respond to those triggers? Because you might, again, kind of to point to, need to do some of this mental, emotional work and look at your weekends and say, okay, on Friday, I weighed 7 pounds less than I weighed on Monday morning. What did I do? And how much of that was because of my choices with the weight fluctuations? And how much of it was a normal fluctuation because of the aforementioned things that I said regarding ovulation, salt retention, bigger meal, ate later, didn't poop, menstrual cycle, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So number 4 is you sleep well and wake up rested. So you fall asleep easily, you stay asleep for the most part, and you wake up without feeling groggy or needing multiple alarms, because good sleep is one of the most powerful signs that your body is in balance. And I can tell you also on the flip side, if you are not sleeping, you absolutely are not metabolically healthy, because poor sleep is going to drive up blood sugars, which is going to in turn drive up A1C and be a hallmark of not having metabolic health. So if your metabolism is not working properly, your body knows, it can't wind down at night. You're not going to stay in a deep restorative sleep. You're not going to activate the energy systems in the morning without constant stimulation or caffeine. And so good sleep reflects cortisol, melatonin, insulin, all hallmarks of metabolic health, right? So cortisol should be low at night. If you have a healthy cortisol rhythm throughout the day, it should spike first thing in the morning around 2 hours after you wake, and then it should kind of gradually decline at night so that it is low and you can fall asleep, because cortisol is also yin and yang to melatonin, right? So melatonin should be lowest in the morning and then rising at night. And if cortisol is too high at night, often due to stress, blood sugar dysregulation, it can lead to insomnia, restlessness, waking up between that 1 to 3 a.m. time. And like I mentioned, melatonin rises when cortisol drops around that 8 to 10 p.m. time. So it's your body's kind of natural sleep hormone, and it gets disrupted by blue light, by blood sugar instability, by inflammation, because melatonin is one of the most powerful antioxidants, and it's made largely in the gut. And so if you have gut imbalances, if you have chronic inflammation, guess what? You're going to burn through your melatonin, and it's not going to be in adequate levels to support sleep.
If you feel tired all the time and you're drinking water, you're probably missing electrolytes, because you need electrolytes to get intracellularly hydrated. We love Buoy because this is an easy way to get in sodium, potassium, magnesium, and trace minerals into your day without any of the junk fillers that most powders use.
And so that lower suppressed melatonin is going to mean you're not falling asleep as easily. You're not staying asleep. And then finally, insulin. So if your blood sugar, a lot of people think that they have, again, low blood sugar problems overnight. My blood sugar drops super low, and then I wake up, because what your body typically is going to do is it's going to basically spike cortisol once blood sugars get too low, because it knows if I spike cortisol, blood sugar will go with it. It's how our body keeps us blood sugar, quote unquote, stable when it's not stable. If you're dropping, you're increasing heavily. And so your body creates this adrenaline and the cortisol to compensate, which then wakes you up suddenly. It's like I wake up and now I have adrenaline flowing. I can't fall back asleep. My mind's racing. And so these high insulin levels or insulin resistance then blunt melatonin production and delay sleep onset. And so poor sleep then makes you more insulin resistant. It's this vicious cycle, which is why we focus so much on, okay, we know someone may not be sleeping very well. We need to fix the system, right? We need to fix the body. We need to fix blood sugar regulation, because that is going to in turn allow for better sleep. So yes, you can support sleep. I'm a huge fan of supporting sleep until you fix the rest of the body, because you need sleep. But if you are not sleeping well, it is typically a huge sign of there is cortisol dysregulation, there's blood sugar dysregulation, and in turn, it's going to affect melatonin. It's going to affect sleep.
Yeah. And I think most people don't realize how important sleep is when it comes to balancing out the other things in the body. So, like going through a healing protocol without sleeping, I always say is like trying to climb a mountain with a 50-pound backpack on. Like you're going to go a lot slower. It's going to be a lot harder. Like you really need to make sure that you're doing everything in your power and your control to get good, deep, restful sleep. And that's everything from your wind down routine, right? Do you have dim lights in the evening time? Are you chilling out, or are you stimulating your body with a bunch of blue light or a bunch of crazy, activity? I would also say that getting outside during the day and getting sunlight upon waking, that's really important to signal your brain, hey, it's awake time, it's alert time. There's been even some research just going outside like upon waking and then at noon and at dusk can really help reset the circadian rhythm, but also taking a step further, what's your sleep environment? Is it set up to be a welcoming, peaceful place that's very dark? It's cool. If you're like me, I like to have really cool and then put a sweatshirt on and get my blankets. It drives my husband's crazy. And I'm like, I want it really cold because I just feel better that way, and then put my sweatshirt on. So last thing here, blood work. Blood work can tell us a lot, and some of this stuff is not checked on your annual panels or just traditional, GP panels if you're going to a general provider. So number one is fasting insulin. A lot of times we see insulin elevated prior to blood sugars becoming elevated. So this early detection helps us spot and reverse insulin resistance before glucose rises and causes like A1C to rise. So we want to be somewhere in the ballpark, I would say 2 to 4 for really optimal metabolic function. Some practitioners would argue up to 6. High levels, again, are going to tell us that there's insulin resistance. Think about Amazon delivery at your front door. Nobody's there to open and accept the package. That's what your cells need to do with insulin. They need to accept the package, and in that package is your blood sugar so that it comes out of the bloodstream into the cell. This can also play a big role with PCOS issues, weight gain, inflammation in the body, signaling that. So you're looking at other markers as well. A1C, so this reflects a 3-month average of your blood glucose. Fasting glucose, this is just a snapshot. And, I think the hard part for me, at least with fasting glucose, when you go to like the lab, some people don't like needles and they're afraid of it. And so they're going to get that white coat syndrome and adrenaline rises and they see a little higher fasting glucose just in that moment, right? Or they react to it. Like I've had clients who have to go in and they have to lay down with their blood work, not look at anything, because otherwise they've passed out. Then they got to eat something and drink some electrolytes after. So I don't put a lot of stake into this, to be honest. I go more off A1C and fasting insulin, but fasting glucose, if you're checking at home or you're looking at your continuous glucose monitor, somewhere between 75, 86, right? 70 to 80 range. Triglycerides. So why does this matter? If you have elevated triglycerides, this is fat building up, in the liver, poor glucose control, and inflammation. So optimal range somewhere in between like 60 and 100, but some people say even below 80. You don't want them to be too low. You really don't want to see them below 60 in my opinion, because you want to make sure that you are also breaking down your fats and absorbing them. The triglycerides to HDL ratio is a strong predictor of insulin resistance. So if we were run those ratios with your triglycerides and your HDL, you want to see that below 1.5. HSCRP, high sensitivity reactive protein. This is going to tell us just overall inflammation in the body, but it is a marker for metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular risk. Ideally, we want to see below a 1. Conventional range is going to say you're fine if you're below a 3. If you're above a 3, chronic inflammation or metabolic risk is something you definitely want to be watching and addressing. Homocysteine. We talked a lot about this. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Go back and listen to the methylation podcast recently. This is a really good marker to tell us about inflammation, cardiovascular issues, and just detoxification overall. Is your body able to methylate properly? Optimal range there is going to be 6 to 8. Again, some people say 4 to 6, kind of depends upon what you're looking at. But if you're looking at a trend and you're not above 9, sit with it. Look at all your other markers. Don't freak out over it. Morning cortisol, 8 a.m. is generally when we have our clients go get their labs drawn by 9. So somewhere in that 8 to 9 range. This tells us, what are your adrenals doing? How is it responding? Are you producing cortisol at a good level? Are you completely burnt out? I see this a lot. I had a call last week, a lab review, and I was like, how do you feel? And she's like, just exhausted. Like, I just feel there's no energy in the tank ever, no matter how much I sleep. Her cortisol was very, very low. It was like 5.6. The optimal range is going to be between 13 and 17. Or if you look at a lab range, look at the bottom, look at the top, add them together and divide by 2. So if you had bottom at 5, top at 20, add them together, 25, divide by 2, 12.5 would be mid-range. That's where you kind of want to be. And then we can also look at some other markers too, in terms of just your liver enzymes, more fractionated lipid panel with your LDL particle sizes or ApoB. This can just tell us if there's more of a cardiovascular risk, depending upon those particle numbers. And then GGT, this is another liver enzyme. And so this can tell us if there's malabsorption, insulin resistance, need for glutathione. It can also tell us if there's like oxidative stress or liver injury happening, and maybe injury from alcohol or medication. So I like that one too. So there's a lot that we look at. And we actually have, and we can put this in the show notes, a metabolic health marker list. And we go through everything that I just said and more. And we give you the lab ranges and then what's, optimal compared to just like the normal. So you could go and check. And if you haven't had your blood work done because your doctor doesn't want to run these things because maybe they don't know what to do if your insulin is high or your cortisol is high or low or whatever reason they give you, hell, they don't even want to check vitamin D for a lot of people anymore. It's very frustrating. Then we can absolutely do a lab work and review with you and help you understand what the patterns and trends are telling us associated to your symptoms, your health, and what you can do about it. So links are in the show notes for that. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it out, rate, review, subscribe, and we'll see you back next week.